My name is Ha-An, 32 years old, and for nearly 30 years of my life, I have always been the less mentioned younger sister in the family, not because I am bad, nor because I do not try. It is just that when my older sister, Tan Mai, is always the center of attention, I naturally become a pale background in that family picture. We were born and raised in a well-off residential area in the heart of Ho Chi Minh City. My father is a construction engineer. My mother is a university lecturer. Both are neat people, live by principles, and believe that success must be measured by title, income, and prominence. Tan Mai is 3 years older than me. Since childhood, she has been the pride of her parents. She is a good student, speaks gracefully, and is active in all group activities. She was the beauty queen of high school, went straight to Foreign Trade University, graduated with honors, and then went to work for a large corporation. Her achievements are always mentioned as a standard, and I, intentionally or unintentionally, am placed next to it for comparison. I am not stupid, not lazy. But in the eyes of everyone, I am always Ha-An, gentle, quiet, good at studying, but lacking ambition. Every time I get a good score or complete something, the familiar response is often, "Well, it's okay, but why don't you learn from Ms. Mai to be better?" I tried to change. In high school, I registered for the International Relations Department, like her. But the more I studied, the more lost I felt. I was not good at communication. I didn't like standing on stage. I liked to read, liked to analyze. And strangely, I felt that I had a very sensitive intuition for models, seemingly disconnected chains of information. Teachers said I was capable, but my family said, "Don't dream, study something that will make money." The year I graduated, instead of applying for an office job as my parents expected, I quietly registered for a professional training program for a special unit of the Ministry of National Defense. Actually, at first I wasn't too sure. It was just that I needed to find a different environment, a place where I wouldn't be judged by my standards. When I announced that I would be going on a long-term business trip, the reactions from my whole family were very similar. "What? You gave up the opportunity to work in an office to join the army, do logistics, type documents?" My father also said something that I still remember. "Your parents didn't raise you to do things that anyone else can do." Mai didn't say much, just gently texted in the family group chat, "Do whatever you like, but don't disappoint your parents anymore." I left home that day in silence. No tears, no words. But inside, I was filled with nameless emotions. Every step was a confusion. Am I doing the right thing? Am I really as incompetent as everyone thinks? This year is the sixth time I have returned to Mai's house for military logistics. I smiled, nodded slightly. No correction, no explanation, because I knew if I said, "I am a major, strategic intelligence analyst," the reaction would be awkward surprise, followed immediately by a sentence like, "Oh, so fierce. You look so gentle. I didn't think of it." So I kept quiet. The party took place in a bustling sound. Everyone excitedly told stories about traveling abroad, real estate investors, children studying at international schools. Each person had a story, but all revolved around two topics: achievements and image. Everyone was playing a role in a modern Tet movie, successful, happy, fulfilled, with direction. I just sat and listened, occasionally nodding, occasionally pouring wine. The only question someone asked me was, "Hey, do you get a lot of time off during Tet in the military? Is your salary okay?" I smiled. "Yes, it's the same as other industries." No one asked further, maybe because they thought I had nothing worth exploiting. I couldn't blame them. I didn't have a check-in photo in Dubai, didn't have a child in a gifted school, and didn't have any CEO following me on LinkedIn. In a moment, I saw my mother sitting in the corner of the room, chatting with a close friend. She said, loud enough for me to hear, "Yes, your Mai is very good. She's promoted to deputy general this year. And Anne is still fine. Whatever job she does in a state unit, it's peaceful, not noisy." Peaceful, no noise. I turned away. My eyes were still calm, my lips still held a small smile. But inside, a part of my heart seemed to calm down. Not because my mother had any bad intentions. She was just saying what she knew. It's just that I had never been the pride in her story. Never. Towards the end of the party, Mai stood up, raised her glass, and gently tapped the glass, the familiar signal to start the show. Thank you everyone for coming. This year is truly a very important milestone for our family. My baby was admitted to an international school. My husband just opened a new branch of the company in Singapore. And personally, next year I will be the vice president of Southeast Asia. Everyone applauded. My parents were clearly proud. My mother turned to me and pushed my shoulder. Mai is doing really well. You learned these things from me. I nodded slightly. Yes. No one asked, "What about you?" Because to them I had nothing to ask. I stood up and quietly walked out onto the balcony. It was getting dark. The wind was cool. The city lights in the distance flickered like a picture simulating life. Bustling, beautiful, and a bit distant. I wasn't sad because I was being looked down upon. I was just sad because even though I was an adult, they still looked at me with the same eyes as 10 years ago, as if I hadn't grown up, hadn't changed, hadn't had a life of my own. I leaned against the railing and closed my eyes. There was a light footstep behind me. It was little Na, Mai's daughter, 8 years old. "Auntie Anne," she called me, her voice small. I turned around and smiled. "Why aren't you playing with your friends?" The child shook his head and handed me a small drawing. It showed a woman in military uniform standing next to a large map. Her face was colored in blue. Her hair was short and black. "Auntie Anne," the child said, "I saw this picture in your room earlier. Are you a superhero?" I smiled. I didn't know if it was because I was touched or relieved. I nodded. Superheroes don't need capes, honey. They just need to do what they believe is right. The baby nodded, then ran away. As for me, standing there for a while longer. At that moment, I knew. All the gazes in the banquet hall, even though they could pass me by as if I were transparent, were no longer so important. It was just that I didn't know that an unexpected event was about to happen, and it would make the whole room absolutely silent. The party was almost over. The last glasses of wine were poured hastily. The smell of food mixed with the smell of expensive perfume created an atmosphere that was half luxurious, half tired. Some people were boasting about going to Europe for Tet. Others were talking about changing cars, investing in a new apartment. I was still sitting there, at the corner table by the window, the extra chair in everyone's eyes. I wasn't angry with anyone. I wasn't sad like the previous times. There was just a lingering feeling. I really didn't belong here. Ms. Mai was enthusiastically telling the story of her first presentation in English in front of more than 100 foreigners. Her parents were nodding, and the uncle and aunt opened their eyes wide in admiration. All eyes were on her, like a spotlight shining on only one side, and I, as usual, was the blurred background. Then right at that moment, amidst the noisy laughter, Idia, for anyone used to living in the city, and I was no exception. Waking up at 4 a.m., running 5 laps around the yard, long jump, push-ups, survival training, disassembling weapons. Many nights I lay on the bed, my body aching, my hands bleeding from rubbing the gun, my feet blistered from combat boots. But the strange thing is, I don't feel like giving up. I'm tired. I'm bored. But deep inside, I feel at peace. No one calls me Miss Mai. No one reminds me to try harder like you. Here, everyone calls me by my real name, Ha An, without any shadow behind. After 6 months of basic training, I was proposed to try my hand at the Strategic Intelligence Analysis Department, which requires caution, observation skills, and a cool mind. Perhaps because I'm quiet, not ostentatious, always take careful notes and think carefully before responding, my superiors noticed. I didn't ask why me. I just knew that every time I was assigned a confidential document to handle, I felt like I was living in reality. My job was not like in the movies. No fighting, no chasing. I sat for hours with data panels, satellite maps, eavesdropping on distorted voices from recorded audio. There were times when I had to piece together small pieces of information to draw a big picture of a potential danger. It was like a puzzle, but each piece was the life of hundreds of people behind it. Gradually, I became an indispensable person in the analysis team. Once, during an urgent mission, just because I discovered a strange command chain from an encrypted message, the whole unit was able to prevent a serious incident at the border in time. No one in my family knew about it. After the campaign summary, Lieutenant Colonel Huy, my direct commander, called me aside and said, "You did better than I expected. You don't need to speak loudly because when you do it right, the results will echo." I just nodded and thanked him. But that day, when I returned to my room, I burst into tears, not because I was moved, but because for the first time in my life, I was recognized without having to play any role. In the following years, I traveled a lot, to many border provinces, and even worked with an international team on a security cooperation program. Under the guise of an information researcher, I worked as a special analyst. I witnessed emergency calls in the middle of the night, anxious looks in the control room, and times when I had to keep secrets down to the last comma and period. I learned how to stay calm in chaos. I learned how to control my emotions. I learned how to deal with pressure without showing it. I have grown up, not because of theoretical teachings, but because of the times when I had to be strong when no one saw. However, there are evenings when, after finishing my final report, I still turn on my phone, looking at family photos. Part of me still secretly wishes, if only my mother knew, her daughter is also contributing to keeping the country peaceful. If only Mai knew. I also have my own path, just without the spotlight. But then I turn off the screen. Maybe no one needs to know anymore. 3 months ago, I was promoted to major, a small ceremony. No fanfare, no photos posted online. Everything was confidential. I received my new badge, stood at attention, and saluted my superiors. And in that moment, I didn't think about the title, but about myself. The 24-year-old girl who left home in silence has now become someone who can make decisions that affect the fate of an entire organization. No need to stand out. No need to explain. No need to be compared anymore. And today, I am sitting here in Ms. Mai's big house, listening to people chatting animatedly, still the same familiar stories, achievements, titles, relationships, celebrities, stocks. I smile, silent, because I know I no longer need to shout to be seen. Just, I wonder, will there be a time when they stop and ask me a simple question? How are you doing these days? 3M's Mai's house is located in a high-end villa area in District 2. From the outside, everything is splendidly neat. A clean stone-paved yard, neatly trimmed bonsai trees, a golden chandelier shining from a large glass window. I stood at the gate for a few seconds, taking a deep breath, not to calm down, but to wrap up some of the emotions that had just risen. I knew well, at parties like this, every word carried double the weight, and silence was easily labeled as unfriendly, lacking in tact, or unapproachable. When I entered, the house was already packed. My parents were sitting and chatting with their relatives. Sister Mai was busy entertaining guests, shaking hands with partners and friends and colleagues. She wore a dark blue dress, which fit her figure well, exuding the gentleness and confidence of a successful woman. I smiled lightly, approached, and greeted Hoi, my direct commander. In his hand was a set of documents and a secure phone. He looked serious, nodded, and said loudly, "Sorry to bother you, but there is an emergency. We need Major Ha-An to return to the unit immediately." The atmosphere in the crowded living room suddenly stopped, as if someone had turned off the sound switch. Major? Emergency? Return to the unit? I took the documents from him, quickly flipped through a few pages, confirmed the information, and nodded. "I understand. Give me 10 minutes." I turned back to the living room. Everyone was looking at me. Not a look of pity, not a look of, "Oh, she's the youngest," but a completely different kind of look. Surprised, wondering, and wary. Ms. Mai stood still, her eyes blinking rapidly. My mother stiffened, as if she had just realized that she had not really known her youngest daughter all this time. I said softly, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Excuse me, I have an urgent matter." Sister Mai spoke softly. For the first time during the party, her voice was uncertain. "And are you really a major?" I looked at her, not angry, not blaming, just smiling slightly. "Yes, I have been doing this job for almost 10 years." My father gently held the armrest of the chair. My mother opened her mouth as if to say something, then stopped. I turned and walked away. Before leaving, I gently placed a small gift on the table, the bottle of wine I had brought from the unit, as a proper farewell. Outside, the wind was calm. The military vehicle was parked. I stepped in, closed the door, and did not look back. In the car, Major Hui looked at me and smiled. "This is the first time I've seen you standing in front of so many people, and still remaining so calm." I smiled lightly. "Because I don't need to scream anymore, teacher. Just do the right thing." Later, I heard about it. That party became a slight shock to the whole family. They started to learn about the unit I worked for. My mother quietly told her close friends that the youngest daughter works in the special forces to analyze something. It's also very important. As for she was silent in the group chat for a week. No one called me the logistics sister anymore. No one asked me if my salary was okay. I didn't need fame. But what made me feel relieved was that for the first time in my life, I was no longer invisible in my own family. I returned to the unit at almost midnight. The emergency situation turned out to be resolved faster than expected. After finishing the report and handing over the task to the next shift, I returned to my room. The nightlight was a pale yellow. The wall clock was ticking slowly. I thought I would fall asleep from exhaustion. But no, something in my heart ached slightly. Not because of work, but because of Mai's eyes before I left. Not surprised, but broken. For the first time, I saw her eyes looking at me, not to teach, not to judge, but as if she wanted to understand. 3 days later, I received a message from her. "If you have time, I'll invite you for coffee. Nothing special. Just want to sit with you, for the first time, truly as sisters." I typed a few words and deleted, retyped, then just texted, "Tomorrow 9 a.m., Old Shop, Hongduk Bookstore." The small coffee shop is located inside an old bookstore, a place we used to visit when we were students. Back then, I often sat secretly reading historical novels, while she read economics magazines and self development books. We went together, but never sat at the same table. The next morning, she arrived first, still in a modest dress with a light perfume. But this time, no bright red lipstick, no 10-centimeter high heels. She sat there in front of me, like an ordinary woman without a title, without a role. I pulled out a chair, nodded. No one said anything for the first few minutes. Finally, she spoke first, softly. "I'm sorry, Anne." I looked up, not surprised, but speechless. "Why?" I asked softly. "Because I've always looked at you with the same eyes, as if you would always be the shy youngest sister, living temporarily on the edge of someone else's world. I don't know. You grew up in such a quiet and strong way." I was silent, not because I was angry, but because I wasn't used to being listened to in this way. She lowered her head, clasping her hands together. "When I was little, my parents often praised me. I was used to having to be good, to be better than others. Every time you achieved something, I didn't congratulate you. I just thought, that's nothing. But you're wrong, because not everyone has to be like you to be worthy of recognition." I looked at her and said, without blame, without pride, "And I used to hate you." She looked up. "Because I always thought you were the standard that I could never reach. But then I realized I didn't need to be like you. I just needed to do what I believed in." She sighed as if something had been lifted from her heart. I used to think that success meant having status and being applauded, but the day you walked out of the house in that uniform, I realized there are people who protect this life with silence, but more profound than any speech. I smiled softly. "Each person has their own battlefront, sister." She nodded. "I hope from now on, we are no longer two people living in parallel. We can sit at the same table, in the same direction." I looked out the window. The soft sunlight was shining on the pages of books on the shelf. I used to be a shadow in that house, but now we were sitting in front of each other. No one was tall, no one was short, just two people, for the first time truly touching each other with trust. No more masks. I raised my cup of coffee, gently said, "Drink because for the first time, we truly saw each other." 6. That Tet, I didn't go home, not because I was angry, but because I felt like I had had a full Tet. Before the band chung was wrapped, or the my flowers had bloomed, I stayed at the unit to be on duty for Tet, like every year. But this time, something was different. On New Year's Eve, Mai called me on video. The screen showed the whole family sitting around the table. Mom, Dad, sister, and even little Na. No one asked, "Why didn't you come home?" Nor did anyone blame me. They just said, "Happy Tet, son. Remember to stay healthy. Whenever you have time, come over for dinner." For the first time, I felt like I was no longer an outsider to the call. In March, I was sent to attend a senior officer training course. Before leaving, I received a small gift box from Ms. Mai. Inside was a military watch, a genuine one, exactly the kind of watch I had mentioned in passing when we were having coffee. Attached was a handwritten note. "Each person has their own watch to count their time. For you, it is every minute of silent but steady dedication. I don't need you to stand out. You just need to always keep that silence in your heart. I am proud of you." I sat there silently for a long time. I don't know why. The gift wasn't expensive, but it made me feel like someone had just put a hand on my shoulder, squeezed it gently. After so many years of walking alone. Life goes on. I still go on business trips, still hold a role in the analysis unit, still don't post anything online. No one knows everything I do. But now I no longer feel the need to prove myself. I understand. There are people who will always live under the spotlight, and there are people, like me, who just need a small light, enough to light their way. I choose that light because it is my own light, not borrowed, not fought for, not overwhelmed by anyone else. Once on a business trip, I stopped by the old bookstore where my sister and I met again. In the middle of the bookshelf was a little girl reading The Silent Warrior. Her eyes were filled with passion. I didn't know who she was, where she came from, but in that moment, at that moment, I felt as if a part of my story was being passed on, without a name, without a voice. I smiled, walked away, lightly. Perhaps everyone needs a dark period in their life to learn how to shine at the right time, in the right place, in the right way. And when that light no longer needs anyone to shine on it, when I myself am enough of a lamp, then all the darkness in the world is no longer scary. The end. G.C.